Fire away, John.
Can you do, number 10?
Number 10.
Yeah, have my face.
It is not on the next page. That's always the way it is. Convert 7.5 gallons to quarts using a unit multiplier. And hopefully you know how many quarts are in a gallon, which is what, Josh?
4.
Okay, so the basic just is this. I guess I need it a little bit larger. Unfortunately, it's gonna go too big on me and then nobody will be happy. There you go. 4 quarts in 1 gallon. Okay, and again, remember, the gist with unit multipliers is crossing labels out. If you cross labels out, you can't go wrong. So the first thing you do is take what they give you, which is 7.5 gallons, and you put it over 1, not over any unit of measurement, it's just one thing, it's over that. And you want to use a unit multiplier that makes the label cross off. So where does gallons have to be on your unit? On the right-hand one, underneath. And I'm changing it into quarts, and there's 4 quarts in 1 gallon. So notice that the labels cross off. So it's just a matter of multiplying 7.5 times 4. If you multiply 7 times 5 times 4, you're going to get 30 quarts. Oh. 30 quarts. Ashley.
Number 3.
3. How much money is a 20% down payment on a $23,900 car? This one, just like sales tax, okay, you can simply find the answer to this. You just want to know what 20% of $23,900 is. Which means what? Okay, yeah, you're just going to multiply. You could do the whole percent box, but really in this case, it's probably not necessarily necessary. You're just going to take 20%, which is what is a decimal, 0.2 or 0.20 times 23,900, and you'll get your answer. I believe it's what? 0.0186741 decimal place there, $4,780. Which would be the same thing if you did the whole ratio box and found out, you know, this is the total amount of money, so that'd be with 100%. Alex Bowman.
Can you do number 20, please?
This one?
Yeah.
What is it about these problems that give us so much trouble? What is the issue there? The issue is there you just can't deal with those. In order of operations, you're supposed to do parentheses first, but you can't put an x and a 2 together because they're not like terms. So that's why you have to do the distributive property to get rid of those parentheses. So when you see those parentheses there, you have to take the 3 times the x and the 3 times the 2. Here's my 3x from here. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times a negative 2 is a negative 6. Okay, we've been doing that for, gosh, probably 3 months now. And then everybody seems to go south.
Like turns.
Okay. People seem to go south on the whole combining of things here. Again, remember, when you add an x and an x, you don't get x squareds. Okay, I have 3 x's and I add 3 more x's to it. I still have 6 x's, not 6x squared. When you multiply them, you get the squares. When you add them, you don't. And then a minus 6 plus 3 is a minus 3. So far, so good. Is it game over? Kendall?
Can you do 4?
Can I do 4? The vertices of a triangle are ABC are that. Well, here's how that works out. I'm gonna do my best with sketching. You would do this on graph paper because that's the best there. A is 1, -2. Here's 1, -2. B is 4, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. And C is 3, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now the question is, first of all, I'm not doing this because you have trouble plotting the points and getting the first triangle right. I mean, you're not going to get it right unless you get this first triangle right. I'm assuming you got the first triangle right, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Now you are supposed to reflect it about the y-axis, which means there's going to be a mirror image right here at this y-axis. Which means if you took this and had a piece of paper and folded it on this axis, and turned this triangle and flipped it over top on itself, what's it going to look like there? The only thing you have to remember is, if you're reflecting it on the y-axis, you are simply going to draw opposite points the same distance from the y-axis. In other words, right here, this point here is 1 unit away from the y-axis here. At the y-axis, you go the opposite direction, that same distance, 1 unit. That's going to be your new point for 1, -2. So that would be A prime. Okay, it would be -1, -2, because it's the same distance. Y-axis is your base. You're going from one side to the opposite side. Same thing here. From the y-axis, this point is 1, 2, 3, 4 away, so you come back 1, 2, 3, 4, put a point there. Okay, that's your B prime point. And the same thing here, straight across. This point was 1, 2, 3 that way, so you draw a point 1, 2, 3 this way, and that is your whatever C prime is, which is what? -3, 3. Because if you redraw this triangle, you get the identical triangle, except it's mirror image flipped on top of each other. If it would have been the x-axis, this would have been a little goofier because it'd be pretty tough to do, but you, instead of going this way on the y's, you do the opposites. From the x-axis, you went that way that much, so you come this way this much and put a point there. The mirror image of this point would be
Right.
itself, because it's no distance from the x-axis. It's right on the x-axis. The mirror image of this point would be 2 going up over here. So your triangle would look boom, boom, boom like that. It'd be kind of a goofy looking shape, but wow, Sam popping.
Can you do number 15?
15? I hope so. One of these days I'm just going to say no, I can't. Alright, Sam, first thing we always look for is, well, you actually could do this one this way, if you do. Is there something I can multiply 3 by to get 1.2?
Yeah.
What?
Wait, never mind. Yeah.
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 0.4. So if that's the case, why didn't you just multiply the top by 0.4?
I did.
8 times 0.4 is?
I did 3 divided by 0.3.
Right. Otherwise, what's the foolproof method? Cross multiplying, where you take 3 times n, and that equals 8 times 1.2. Which means you get 3n equals 9.6. Divide by 3 to get the n by itself, and you're still going to get 3.2. Either way would be fine. I'm sure you're capable of all of those. Kyle Westfall.
12 and 13.
12 and 13. Well, the area of the shape here, where are we struggling with that, Kyle? How many shapes are there?
What?
How many shapes are there? What do we cut it into?
Square and triangle.
Square and a triangle. It's not really a square. It's actually a rectangle and a triangle. But it looks like a square, but it's not. What's the area of the square? The rectangle.
Square root is 20.
So you got that right?
Yeah.
Now, the trouble comes when we try to find the area of that triangle, right? Formula of a triangle is
Area.
1/2. I don't know why I did that. Area equals 1/2 of the base times the height. You need to know what this little line is right here, you need to know what that line is. We know that line going up is 4. What's the distance from here to here? Ooh, suddenly there's a mystery, because you can't figure it out as we have it right now. That's when you have to go start looking around and say, oh, this is a right triangle. Right, with a 4 high and a 5 hypotenuse. Notice here the hypotenuse is 5. One side is 4, so that other side has to be 3 for the triangle. So you get 1/2 of 3 times 4, which is half of 12, which is 6. So the little triangle is 6, and then you add 20 plus 6 for your grand total of 26, whatever it is, inches squared. Love the Pythagorean theorem. Of all the theorems, it could possibly be my favorite. Mostly because I don't remember any other ones. And Kyle said 13. The hose was coiled in cylinder loops about 20 inches in diameter. So here's my loop, it's 20 inches in diameter. To the nearest foot, each loop was how many feet long. So they're asking you for the circumference, but they're asking you for the circumference not in inches but in feet. Okay, so my suggestion, if you're writing notes on this, is to find the circumference in inches and then just change that into feet, because it's just a division problem, right? 12 inches in a foot. So circumference equals 3.14 times diameter, 3.14 times 20, which is what? 20 times that is 62.8 inches. Is that in inches? And they said about how many feet, so there you get to kind of do your own boss. You're going to divide this by 12. Well, 12 goes into 62.8. About how many times? 5 times 12 is 60, so that's where they end up with the answer of 5. If you were more specific and gave me a decimal, I suppose I would take that, but that's as much as they want. It goes into about, so it's about 5 feet. One wraparound is about 5 feet. Right there. So note to self, find circumference, divide by whatever you need of measurement. Caroline? Lucky number 9. Malcolm can drive about 300 miles between 12-gallon fill-ups. At that rate, how many gallons of gas does this car use driving 125 miles? Well, here's the first thing I would do. I would take an educated guess. What would be an educated guess at that? So you know at least in the end if your answer is going to be right. Phil?
6.
I'd say that's at least a good guess, because if he uses 12 gallons to go 300 miles, he's only going 125, which is, I guess, close to half of that, so you're only going to use close to half 12 gallons. But how do you find out the exact answer? And again, there's a couple ways to do this, but I'm not sure which way, it's what lesson 49 tells us to do there. Okay, it's an equal ratio, equal proportions. Is that what you said, Emma Kunacek? What did you do? Okay, and Kunacek wanted to know, this is, okay, we figure out gas in miles per gallon, right? So we did 300 miles in with 12 gallons. And Emma Kunacek said she divided that out to figure out how many miles she gets per every gallon, right? What'd you come up with? What's that? 25. Okay, so you're getting 25 miles for every gallon. Okay, well, if you want to go 125 miles, then if you get 25 miles for every gallon, what would you do with 25 and 125 to figure out how many gallons?
Divide.
You would divide it out. And I believe that goes in there 5 times. Now, if that doesn't work for you, you can set it up proportionately, just like anything else with percents. You can say, if you go 300 miles in 12 gallons, you know, we can do a ratio box with this. Okay, if you do 300 miles takes you 12 gallons. If you're only doing 125 miles, how many gallons will that take? And it would all work exactly the same way. Okay, it would be just like it. You could reduce this fraction. You could make it 25 over 1, and then cross multiply 25 times n equals 1 times 125. Any way you feel like you can do it, it will all work. Maybe the proportion and the ratio thing would be easier for you. But look and see what lesson 49 says. Your call on that. Kendall, how?
Can you do 8?
I didn't do 8 yet. Oh, do we have to do 7 to do 8, or is 8 still by itself? Sure, I can do 8. Why not? Especially since I kind of gave you this, didn't I?
Yeah.
Didn't I talk you through most of this? Okay, here's the notes, and this is the notes you want to write down. Lateral surface area equals the perimeter times height, because they give you that. Again, I drew this yesterday, it's still on the board over there. He said you have this room that you are painting the walls of. You know that that room's height is 8. And then the only other thing they gave you is that the perimeter of it is 120. Which means if you were to go around the whole base, add it all together, you're going to get 120. To find the lateral surface area, you just have to multiply those two together. 8 times 120, the lateral surface area is 960 square feet. Well, if you, and then they said each can covers 300 square feet, how many 300s do you get out of 960? You take 960 and divide it by 300. You get 3, which is 900. And here's the deal, I said yesterday, you can't buy, actually in a store you can buy a quart, but they said how many gallons are you going to need? Well, you're going to need 3 whole gallons, and then you're going to have this leftover, so really you're going to have to buy that quart gallon and have some left over for the next time you scratch the walls and get some touch-up paint. So multiply / divide. Have a Kunachai?
Did you do number 16?
We haven't done 16 yet? Oh, there it is. You're gonna tell me what to do. Josh, what do I have to do?
You have to collect by terms.
Right. You need to simplify this first. Before you solve the equation, you need to put together what you can put together there. And again, if you have 3 x's and you take 1 x away, there's no x squareds in that whole thing. You're just left with 2 x's. This minus 1 doesn't go with them because they're not like terms. So there would be your first step. Add those x's together. Like, you know what I make myself on my little cheat sheet for tomorrow. Now it's just a regular equation. Grace, what do I have to do to solve this regular equation here?
I have to add the
Add the 1 because you do the opposite. Add the 1 to the other side because you do what you do to one side, you do to the other. I get 2x equals 16. And last step is Demetra. Yep. Well, I 2 in both of them to isolate the x, and x is then going to equal number 8. Numero 8. Mackenzie?
19.
Love it. We are making so much progress here. Oh, yeah. number 19. We struggle with these too, don't we? Mackenzie, tell me what you did first.
I did the top part first and then
Okay, so you ended up with what here?
-3 plus pi 15
Or just plus 2, sure,
and then plus -1.
which is just a minus 1. Anytime you have opposite signs together, you just put the minus. Same signs, you can put the plus. Okay? So what happens when I take a negative through 3, add 2 to it, and then take another one away? What am I left with? And again, you can think about this like with positive and negative signs. If you have 3 negatives, that's like having 3 negative signs. 2 plus 2 means it's like having 2 plus signs. A negative 1 is like having another negative. If you get a negative and a positive together, they cross out, they cancel each other out. You're left with 2 negatives, a minus 2. He doesn't want to write a minus 2, a minus 2, a minus 2. That's the top. And then on the bottom, what happens on the bottom? Kendall? It is. Because there's no sign between those parentheses, that means you multiply the 2. And 2 negatives multiplied give you a positive. 1 times 2 is 2. Now you've got a negative on top and a positive on the bottom. 1 negative makes the whole thing negative. 2 divided by 2 is 1. It's probably the time for the ooh.
Ooh.
Doesn't change, kids. Same answers. More. I'm glad we got the scientific notation all down. Kendall?
14.
Well, Kendall, did you draw the circle?
Yes.
Did you make a 10-inch diameter?
Yes.
Did you write down the formula for the area of a circle?
Yeah.
Why not? Area equals pi times radius times radius. What do we put in for pi? 3.14, thank you. Did you say 0.2? Is that wrong? And what's my radius is there, Kendall?
5.
So 3.14 times 5 is going to get me, I want the about, so 5 times 5 is 25. 3.14 times 25. I guess we might as well do it. You get 0.58. 78.50. Which one of those is closest to 78.50? Close to 80. Kendall? Well, we haven't already done. Driving distance between Denver and Chicago along the interstate is 1,200 or 1020 miles. How long would it take to drive that distance at 60 miles per hour? I have a distance of 1020, Kendall, and every hour I go. Come on. Sure. You know where it's at back there? Kendall, think about this. If every hour I go 60 miles, the first hour I go this far, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. How am I going to find out how many hours it's going to take me? Simple division problem. 1020 divided by 60. 60 doesn't go into 1, doesn't go into 10, goes into 102 one time. You end up with 420. Looks to me like it's going to be 17 hours. Helps if you sketch it out a little bit, I think you can see it a little bit better. Which ones haven't we done?
17, 18, 11.
Really, a bunch of you missed problem number 5. What was the issue with problem number 5?
I got it.
I know at least 6 or 7 people missed it. Raise your hand if you missed it. Morgan, so what'd you do wrong?
Well, I don't know.
So you're just gonna not ask?
Well, I did, I put the little 18 over 30, and then I did 30 minus 18 to see how many games they lost. And
Okay.
then I did 18 over 12,
Right.
and then I got 6 halves, and I used 3 more.
What number goes into 12 and 18? 6. And highlight there, it didn't ask you what was the ratio, their winning ratio, they asked games won to lost. 1 has to go on top, they won 18 games. How many had they lost? They didn't lose 30 games, they played 30 total, they lost 12. Once you get that ratio, then you have to reduce it. Nobody else, none of this stuff? Nobody has any issues with the scientific notation either, huh? Perfect. What? Is this your